I adjusted the velvet box in my hand for the 10th time and tried the words again. The empty chair across from me remained unimpressed. My throat felt dry as I looked out over the city lights, a perfect grid of intention and design stretching to the horizon. It has to be perfect. Dmitry leaned against the glass door to my apartment, scrolling through something on his phone. He wore a black hoodie and jeans that probably cost more than my entire suit. Nothing is perfect, Leo. It is a statistical improbability. My parents got engaged with a ring from a gumball machine after knowing each other for 3 months. I am not repeating that. I remembered the story well. A piece of chaotic family lore they both told with a strange mix of laughter and regret. It was a foundation of sand, and their house fell apart exactly as you would expect. A good plan prevents a bad ending, I said, reciting the belief that had shaped my entire adult life. I am not leaving our future to chance. Dmitry walked over and held out his wrist, tapping a new watch with a dark screen. Happy birthday, by the way. It tracks your heart rate, your stress levels, everything. Plans are just data. The data has to match the reality. I took the watch from him and put it on my wrist. It felt cool and heavy. The reality is that Zola and I are right for each other. The data supports it. He just gave me a look that was equal parts supportive and skeptical, the way only a best friend of 20 years could. He recommended a proposal planner he had found online, a company called Perfect Moments LLC, known for flawless execution. I hesitated for a moment, the idea of outsourcing the plan feeling like a small failure, but the pressure of my new promotion was immense. Later that week, Zola and I stood in a bright white room surrounded by strange, colorful paintings. She looked beautiful in a simple, dark blue dress, her long hair styled in braids that framed her open, smiling face. She leaned into me and whispered that we should ditch the stuffy gallery opening and find a late-night food truck. I loved that impulsive part of her, but I gently steered her back to our schedule. We had to make an appearance. Her father was here somewhere, and my architecture firm had just won the contract for the new pediatric wing he was funding. A breakup would be more than personal. It would be a professional catastrophe. We were a perfect couple with a 5-year plan, and everyone knew it. The next day, I was swamped with blueprints and contractor bids from the promotion, so I decided on a phone consultation with the planner. I called the number for Perfect Moments LLC. A woman's voice answered, warm and intelligent and with an odd familiarity that made a shiver run down my spine. She introduced herself as C. Dubois. We talked for nearly an hour about logistics and aesthetics. She understood my vision for a meticulously planned, unforgettable moment completely. I have an opening in my schedule, but it will go fast, she said. If you sign the contract and pay the deposit within the hour, I can offer a significant discount on my fee. It was an impulsive move for me, driven by a logical assessment of her obvious skill and the appeal of a good deal. I opened the file she sent, my finger hovering over the digital signature line. I clicked Sig. A confirmation appeared on my screen. Contract submitted. Non-refundable. A feeling of triumph washed over me, mixed with a sudden and inexplicable dread. I walked into a small, stylish office with gray walls and modern white furniture. A large whiteboard was covered in neat handwriting, listing romantic ideas and timelines. The place felt clean and organized and cold. A woman stood with her back to me, writing something on the board. She wore a black blazer and matching pants, her brown hair pulled back in a neat bun. She was all business. She turned around. It was Corinne Dubois, Cory. My college girlfriend, the one who had shattered my heart into 1,000 pieces because my life plans were suffocating her. 10 years of unspoken history filled the small space between us. The air became thin. My carefully constructed world tilted on its axis. We just stood there, staring. The contract was signed. The massive deposit was non-refundable. My career was now tied to the success of this proposal. I learned later that her business was failing, and my contract was the only thing stopping it from going completely under. We were both trapped. She was the one who represented the chaos I had spent a decade building walls against, and now she was in charge of my future. We finally sat down at the white table. The signed contract, a physical barrier between us. The first official planning session began. So, she said, her voice a flat professional tone that was a universe away from the voice I remembered. "Tell me about Zola. What does she love?" I started to describe Zola, but the words that came out felt hollow. I talked about our shared goals, our stable life, our 5-year plan. I was describing the life I wanted, the structure I had built, not the woman I was supposed to be in love with. I was talking about the blueprint, not the person. Cory watched me, her expression unreadable. She picked up a pen and wrote a single line on her legal pad, her hand shielding it from my view. I could not see the words, but I knew what they were. He's not in love with her. This is for you, Leo, not for her. Cory's words hung in the cold air of the observatory, and the professional space between us collapsed. We were standing under the dome next to the giant old telescope that pointed at the ceiling, and through the tall windows the city lights spread out far below us like a blanket of broken glass. I had brought her here on our first real date in college, right to this spot, and I told her I loved her while we looked at the same view. I suggested the location for my proposal to Zola because it was grand and dramatic, something impressive from a movie. But I had forgotten its history until I was standing here again with Cory. She saw it on my face and told me the truth I was trying to ignore. The place was wrong because it was mine and hers, a ghost from a past I had sealed away. We left the observatory and the perfect plan started to feel like a problem I could not solve. A few days later, we met to work on the details, and she asked for a list of songs that were important to me and Zola. I sat at my laptop with a blank document titled Zola's Songs and could not think of a single one. We listened to music, of course, in the car or at dinner, but there was no song that was ours. The only melody that came into my head was a stupid indie song Cory and I had listened to for an entire semester, and it played on a loop in my memory while I stared at the empty page for an hour. The next time we met, she had a small wooden box with her. She told me she had been looking through my old college cloud storage for photos to use in a slideshow and found a video I did not remember taking. It was of my grandmother sitting in her garden, humming a French lullaby she used to sing to me. Cory had found a craftsman to put the melody into a custom music box. She placed it on the table between us and turned the small key. A delicate, familiar tune filled the quiet office. I just stared at it. My throat felt tight. It was a piece of my deepest childhood, a sound I had not heard in 20 years, something I had shared only with Cory during a late-night conversation and then completely forgotten. Zola had never even met my grandmother. Cory's professional smile faded as she watched my reaction, her expression turning to confusion and then a quiet alarm. "Leo? What is it?" Our planning sessions moved to a small cafe that stayed open late. We were arguing one night about the color of the flowers. It was a minor detail, but the argument became passionate, and I felt a spark of the old energy we used to have. In the middle of making a point, an old inside joke from college slipped out of my mouth. It was something obscure and meaningless to anyone else. It stunned us both into a heavy, loaded silence across the table, which was covered in planning documents and empty coffee cups. That was when I saw Zola through the window. She was walking by with her friend Sylvie, and she smiled and waved, her expression open and curious. I waved back, my stomach twisting into a knot. She came inside, and I stood up to introduce Cory as the planner. Zola was gracious and kind, but I could feel her watching the two of us, sensing the strange tension that remained in the air. Later that night, back in our apartment, she did not accuse me of anything. She just looked at me with a deep, searching concern that was worse than jealousy. "Are we a team, Leo, or is this just your project?" I opened my mouth to give her the easy, reassuring answer, the one that was part of the plan, but for the first time in my life, I had no blueprint for what to say. Zola tried to reconnect in the days that followed. She planned a spontaneous date night, something to break our routine, but I told her I had a work emergency I could not get out of. As soon as I ended the call with her, I sent a text to Cory about a last-minute planning issue that needed our immediate attention. At the cafe that night, Cory could see how miserable I was. Her professional armor finally cracked. She spoke quietly, admitting that she built a business orchestrating perfect moments for other people because it was the only way she felt she could control the chaos of our breakup, the one moment she could not plan or fix. I saw the genuine pain in her face, and I started to reach my hand across the table to touch hers. From across the room, I saw Dimitri. He was sitting at a table in the corner, his laptop open. He wasn't looking at us, but at his screen. I watched him for a moment and saw him look down at his smartwatch, then back at his screen, which showed lines and graphs I did not understand. He zoomed in on a specific part of a timeline, his brow furrowed in concentration. He typed a few commands into his computer. The night before the proposal, Dimitri came to the apartment. He did not say hello. He just held up his phone and showed me a graph. "This is your heart rate with Zola," he said, his voice flat. He pointed to a calm, steady line at the bottom of the screen. Stable. Predictable. Then he pointed to a different part of the graph, a chaotic mess of jagged peaks that spiked over and over again. "This is your heart rate every time you get a text from Cory." Data doesn't lie, Leo. My whole philosophy, the belief that a good plan prevents a bad ending, was destroyed by that simple, damning picture. He was right. The data did not lie. The calm, flat line for the stable life I had built, and the wild, uncontrollable chaos for the woman who had wrecked my life once before. After he left, I sat alone in the silent apartment I shared with Zola. The space was filled with evidence of our perfect, planned life together. The neat furniture, the organized shelves, the smiling photos on the wall. It all felt like a stranger's home. The little wooden music box Cory had made was sitting on the coffee table. I picked it up, the smooth wood cool in my hand. My thumb rested on the small metal winding key. I thought about my two futures. One, a secure, comfortable life built on a foundation that was now a lie, and the other, a complete unknown, a leap into the same emotional chaos that had ruined my parents and sworn me to a life of control. After a long moment of hesitation, I slowly turned the key. The haunting, deeply personal melody of the French lullaby filled the quiet apartment. The key turned in the lock, but the apartment I opened was not my own. It looked like my apartment and it smelled of the white lily Zola loved, but every object inside it had been arranged by someone else. The lights were low and small. White candles flickered on the tables and shelves, their flames creating soft, moving shadows on the walls. A bottle of champagne sat in a silver ice bucket on the coffee table. Soft classical music was playing from a speaker I could not see. It was a perfect picture of romance, a beautiful stage set for a life I was supposed to want. Cory was standing by the large windows, looking out at the city lights. She wore dark gray trousers and a black blazer, her work clothes. Her hair was tied back, but a few strands had fallen loose around her face. She held a clipboard against her chest like a shield. She turned when I closed the door behind me, and her face was controlled, her expression professional, but her eyes were full of a deep and painful understanding. She knew what Dimitri's graph had shown me. She had seen the data in my face for weeks. "It's time," she said softly. I walked into the center of the room, standing between the curated evidence of my future with Zola and the woman who represented its end. The air was thick with the scent of flowers and wax. I looked at the two champagne glasses waiting next to the silver bucket. I looked at the empty space on the couch where Zola was meant to sit. My entire life had been a project of building walls against chaos, and now I stood inside the most perfect room I had ever conceived, a fortress of stability, and I knew I had to tear it down. Cory finished her final check, her gaze moving over every candle and flower. She did not look at me. "Everything is ready," she said. "It's perfect for her." I looked at the whole scene, this flawless life laid out before me that now felt like a beautiful cage. Then I looked at Cory. "You're right," I said, and my voice broke on the words. "It is perfect. But I planned it all for the wrong woman." The sound of my phone buzzing on the counter cut through the quiet music like a gunshot. We both froze. The screen lit up with a text message. It was from Zola. "Downstairs. Can't wait to see you." I stood there, a statue in the middle of the room, trapped between Cory by the window and the apartment door. She finally looked at me, and in that one shared glance, a universe of apology and terror passed between us. The sound of a key in the lock clicked through the apartment. The door handle began to turn. My eyes met Cory's one last time. The door swung open.